Hi, my name is Jill, and I'm an occupational therapist from Sensational Development. You can see our logo right up here. And I'm here to help you help your child reach their maximum potential. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about handwriting. Handwriting is a common difficulty for our kiddos, especially as requirements increase, and they're not always necessarily developmentally appropriate. That said, sometimes practice doesn't make perfect, and your child or student may be falling behind. So there's actually a lot of foundational skills that go into handwriting, and I wanted to go over a few of those with you today. That said, my advice does not forego that of a therapist or a doctor who is specifically trained and informed on your child and working directly with them. First thing I wanted to discuss was developmental milestones. So there's a few key things here, but I do suggest pausing and reading to get the full picture. Starting at 6 months, your child should have integration of primitive reflexes. A good example of this is taking your index finger and placing it in the palm of a baby, and they'll wrap their fingers around your index finger immediately. So that's actually a reflex, but there's larger movement patterns that can affect the child's ability to sit still, comfortably look down at their paper and back up at the board, or reach in front of their body, which sometimes affects establishment of hand dominance. Around 1 to 2 years of age, you should be able to see them, moving their arm a little bit more in a coordinated manner, picking things up and looking at them, twisting their forearm to do so, scribbling, using their whole arm to scribble. So instead of keeping their arm still when they color, they're going to use their whole arm. You're going to see some movement from there, and you should also see poking and pushing. From ages 2 to 3, you should be able to see them manipulate small objects and begin to trace very, very simple markings. 3 to 4, they begin to copy their own shape, so they can look at something and copy it from there. Very simple shapes. They should be able to snip forward using scissors. And from ages 4 to 5, they should be able to establish an appropriate writing grasp, copy simple words, of course, depending on their grade level, and their hand dominance is likely established. So going over that, primitive reflexes, they are old movement patterns from infancy that should be removed. That is usually done through movement, tummy time. Just the more active your child is, the better. There are some specific things to do, but we'll go over that in another video. Poking, using 2 hands together, and coloring with whole arm movements are important indicators from ages 1 to 2 of a child's establishment of hand skills. Here are 2 pictures of efficient grasp patterns. They're slightly different. One has the index and the middle finger on the writing tool, and the other one just has the index with the other fingers supporting. Key thing is to notice how the writing tool is resting back in my web space instead of straight up. It doesn't look like I'm using too much force or too little force when writing. A lot of times kids will wrap their thumb around the writing tool and around their index finger, and this will limit movement, and it can also put them at risk for fatigue. Okay, next I wanted to go into gross motor skills. So first things first, how is their posture? Do they look rigid? Do they look floppy? Do they fall out of their chair? And what about their hand endurance? Are they able to manipulate and open markers? Can they use a pencil sharpener? Can they open and close fasteners of their clothing? What about tweezers and games? So those are just some things to look at to kind of get an idea of how your child is doing. And again, always refer to development first. Looking at seated posture, children should be seated with their hips at a 90-degree angle. Computer, if they're using one, should be at eye level. Feet resting flat on the floor, and table at elbow height. This will ensure that they are propped up comfortably and appropriately and give them a stable base for writing. Next are some hand endurance skills. I'm using Theraputty in 2 of these pictures, which is one of my favorite hand strengthening tools. And also I love using markers, glue, wet or dry, just to get the kids to open and close things a little bit more. The more opportunities for movement and strengthening you put in their daily routine, the better. And also look at how I need those specific finger patterns to pick out the bead or put the coin back into the putty. Also important to look at are visual skills. So of course, consider acuity first and their developmental age. Visual skills are built over time, of course. Some kind of things to look for and keep an eye out for are if your child has difficulty finding things, do they become visually overwhelmed or visually fatigued during specific subjects, particularly things like math or things that have a lot of reading, or even if they get reading support in school. Does your child have difficulty reading different fonts as well? Or even playing games like I Spy? Here are a few examples on the side. So finding how many hearts are there, seeing what the shape is, if it's overlapping, looking at that heart in the circle, and being able to tell that it's still a heart in a circle. Being able to go through a maze, whether it's using a pencil or just using their eyes. So that's a little bit of a motor skill. Your eyes can be a little weak, but they can also be visually overwhelmed from this. And also reading different fonts. Here's an example. So some of my kiddos a lot of times have a hard time recognizing that that letter I in if is a letter I and not a little L. Also, when A's have the hat on them, a lot of my kids will have difficulty reading that too. Something here I wanted to go over is attention and memory. This is a larger skill, but of course these are executive functions. Things to look out for are, does your child forget things often? Do they have difficulty answering questions you know you've already reviewed with them? Staying still to sit and do schoolwork? Look flappy or frequently rest their head on their hands? Also, things to look out for are poor adaptability, such as schedule changes and extreme frustration or anxiety with those. Excessive fatigue, poor safety awareness or confusion. Trouble learning new skills and remembering those skills. So this is where we go into a little bit of sensory processing skills, different movement activities that can help your child to learn. We'll go over that in another video, but sensory processing is something to look out for, and that can affect attention and memory. So what do I do, right? So maybe you see something that you want to work on with your child, or what are some good ways to do that? Consider reaching out to an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, or a neurologist, even your doctor as well, for more information. But the key thing is play. Children build skills through play at a rate that is extremely higher than just repetitive practice. Doing something that, even think about yourself, if you're doing something that you enjoy, you're going to learn it faster. You're going to want to learn it, to practice it. And say you want to learn the guitar and you practice different hand exercises, you're very excited about it, you play different hand games too. That'll make it easier for you to learn the guitar, but you're also building those functional skills and generalizing them to that skill. Just as a review, looking at developmental milestones. So some important things to do with your child, no matter the age, is tummy time, having a child lay on their stomach and do their work. Do some core strengthening, crawling, and this can be incorporated into obstacle courses with animal walks, crawling or frog jumping to go get a piece of, or get a crayon, or even a piece of their favorite game. And then log rolling back or jumping on 2 feet on the way back, or even doing hopscotch or building a chalk obstacle course outside are great things. But the more movement, the more activity, the more frequent you do these things, the better. Looking at gross motor skills, consider enrolling your child in an independent sport such as gymnastics, karate, or swimming. And I say independent too because children with coordination difficulties will often know that they have these coordination difficulties, and it can negatively impact their self-worth, self-efficacy. So independent sports are great ways to independently work on those skills without worrying about the social aspects. Build more movement into your daily routine. That's always good. Obstacle courses, having a daily yoga practice, yoga flow, set a daily workout regimen are great ideas. Visual skills. So Practice copying words, letters, or shapes, of course, at the age-appropriate level. Drawing activities step by step. There's a lot on YouTube that you can find. Do some hidden picture worksheets. Scavenger hunts are a lot of fun, and I Spy games. And also consider buying puzzles, pattern-based or matching-based board games to play as a family. And you can also reach out to a developmental optometrist who will screen for visual motor skills rather than visual acuity, who would be the ophthalmologist. Looking into attention and memory, some things that I found to be very beneficial are finding out what kind of learner your child is. Do they do best listening, looking and learning, like videos? Do they do the best moving and learning, or all three? And try and get creative and think of some ideas for that. Also, incorporate multisensory learning. So, the more input, the more focus, the more fun learning is, the more like play it is, the better the child's going to do with it. So consider writing letters in sand or dry rice with them using their index finger to do so, bouncing on an exercise ball and practicing spelling at the same time, or doing movement activity before participating in schoolwork will help your child get a little more focused as long as they're not too fatigued. So that is what I have for you today. Please leave any comments or questions in the box down below, and I'm looking forward on making videos on the subtopics as well. Thank you for your attention today, and I look forward to hearing from you.